And good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And I'm Danny Harmon. Good evening.
And we are rail fans. So good evening. We have Danny Harmon on the show again, which we're all very excited about. So how you doing?
Dan?
How you doing, Danny?
I'm hearing a big delay here. What should I do about that?
You may be running our YouTube feed, so you may want to pull that down and just make sure you have this up.
Yeah, turn off any other web browser you might have going.
But we are live this evening. Yep. Good evening, everyone.
No, still hearing that. Let me turn that off. I don't know why.
No, we hear you just fine.
Yeah.
See, Jonathan and I have got semi-matching shirts. We both bought these at exactly the same time.
I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we bought it at the Horseshoe Curve, which both of us are huge fans of.
Yeah, it was what, 4 years now?
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, well, 3 years. Yeah. So it was that was a great trip. We had a lot of fun on that trip.
Yeah, I mean it was interesting. We were actually going out to the Dayton Hamvention. We had the SDS 100 with us, which is was the latest and greatest from Unit and Bearcat. We were beta testing that, and then we ended up getting permission to show it off at the Dayton Hamvention. So the general public got to see the radio firsthand. Now, many of you out there that are concerned about NextEdge or some railroads using DMR, that may be a scanner to look at possibly, but it's got a huge price tag. So it's it's not a cheap scanner whatsoever, but most of the railroads are analog. So the 125 AT is the go-to scanner. As you can see there, Rich is showing it off, and that's available at Scanner Master.
I love my 125.
Yeah, I mean, we can't say enough about it. I mean, we talk about it so much on the other show, the scanner guys, that people make fun of us if we don't mention it on the show.
It's a running theme on that show.
So did you were you able to fix that, Danny?
I did. I had about 1 million tabs open here, and I was hearing us like 3 and 4 times. So I missed the whole first minute and a half of the show. So, but I'm back here.
Perfect.
Fully cognizant now.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we have an action-packed show. Danny will be playing a role as a co-host, just like us. So we're going to talk about various topics tonight. So sit back and relax. The first hour, we're going to cover the slideshow. The 30 minutes after that, we'll answer questions. So if you have questions for Danny, post them in the comments, and we'll be happy to address those in the 30 minutes after the top of the hour at 9 o'clock Eastern time. So let's dive into the slideshow presentation right now. I can't believe it. We're up to episode 11 for season 2. So this year's gone by really fast. Stay connected with Train Aficionado through our newsletter, the Trackside Bulletin. You can sign up at the official website, trainaficionado.com. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Excuse me, at Train Aficionado. I'm still getting over a little bit of a cold. Excuse me. All right, so tonight's show broken up into 3 segments. So we're going to talk about Folkestone. We're also going to talk about planning for your rail fanning trip in 2022 and some of our goals for the upcoming year. I mean, 2021 is almost gone, so that's going to be it's going to be an interesting next year. Hopefully, all the things going on with COVID will die down. Things will get back to normal, and we may have some interesting things going on out there. I know Pan Am and CSX or one of those mergers. Who knows if it's going to happen? But Rich, we do have some information on this particular merger.
Yeah, so the CP Rail and the KCS looks like it's going to happen. The FRA has allowed CP Rail to place KCS into a voting trust, which basically means the company still operates under CP ownership, but CP can't control the company, the KCS company, and they still operate as separate railroads. And more importantly, they are allowing the CP KCS merger to go through using old rules, pre-2007, I think it is, rules that made it much easier for an end-to-end merger such as this. CN had tried to buy the KCS as well with a competing offer, and KCS accepted that offer, but it turned out the FRA would not allow them to use the old rule and would force them to use the newer rules, which would have made it much more difficult for that merger to occur. So CP came up with another offer. KCS accepted that, the third offer that they've accepted now, 2 from CP and the 1 from CN. And that one looks like it's going to happen if and when this is all completed, and the company and possibly the railroad itself will likely be known as the Canadian Pacific Kansas City, or the CPKC. Nobody really knows, and it's too early to tell if there's going to be a new paint scheme for locomotives, or if they're just going to name the company CPKC and keep the railroad as CP Rail, or what they're going to do. But I would imagine they're probably going to come up with some combined paint scheme for the combined company. And as for the pictures, the top picture is taken from the Trans-Canadian Highway, looking across the Fraser River to the CP Rail across the river there in the Canadian Rockies. And the KCS picture was taken in the yard in Kansas City. You can tell that it's dated by the old paint scheme, and the F unit in there, that was taken in the about 1990-ish range.
Wow. I mean, so this is pretty interesting. You know, I mean, we kind of reported a couple months ago about the other equation of the merger. We even pulled up maps and all the. I mean, so this is going to be interesting to see, you know, how this all plays out. Like you said, Rich, there's so many unknowns. You know, what the name of the new branded company will be, what the paint schemes will be, what will change, what will stay the same.
Yeah. And this will be the first railroad to operate in 3 countries in North America. KCS has extensive trackage in Mexico. They own the KCS of Mexico, and they CP, of course, has got lines throughout Canada and throughout the central part of the U.S. And so it'll be a true free trade, North American free trade agreement railroad, because you can route on a single line from Canada through the U.S. and into Mexico and back.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, you know, to be able to have one carrier, you know, across those borders. So it should be really interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what the unintended consequences of that will be, though. You never know. There's always these things that pop up with those kind of mergers, but it's certainly going to be exciting.
Being an end-to-end merger, you're not likely to see a whole lot of trackage abandoned or sold off, like in some of these other mergers, where there's a parallel merger where you're going to have a lot of synergies by getting rid of a lot of track and selling things off. This is more of an end-to-end type of thing, so I don't think there's going to be a big sell-off there. And this is really about the only merger that could occur that would be unlikely to trigger the final round of big mega mergers, where there's this railroad and that railroad, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, because these guys aren't going to really be competing with the other big 4 out there in as far as their, because it's really a north-south kind of railroad, and you know it goes where the eastern roads don't go.
Right.
And you know, of course, the western roads are more or less east-west.
You can imagine what a rare merger with something with the UP or the BNSF, the Norfolk Southern CSX, any merger involving two of those roads would almost automatically trigger a merger between the other two uninvolved roads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then who knows what would happen with CN.
Oh, jeez. What a mess. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
It was the CN that started the new rules in the first place. It was the CN and BNSF proposed a merger probably in the late 1990s, I think it was. And that is what generated the new rules. They had a moratorium on mergers for a period of time. And then the FRA came up with new rules, which made it much more difficult for railroads to merge. And the FRA has kind of blessed this merger by saying, yeah, you can use the old rules. Anybody else would have to use the new ones.
So crazy. Well, yeah. I guess we'll keep an eye on this and see what happens. I want to thank Dale Osborne for mentioning this to us. You know, sent me a text earlier today as a reminder to make sure that we cover this topic, because a lot has came out over the last past couple of days. So big doings, you know, down in Georgia, almost by the Florida line, is the Folkestone Rail Watch Winter Watch 2021. Now, Rich and I, neither one of us have been down there, but Danny, you've been down there quite a few times. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you got to go. I mean, Folkestone is one of those naturally happening choke points on the railroad that just created a whole bunch of train traffic in a very small place. And that coupled with some other things, you know, about the city itself, the way the city was laid out, and what they did with it after CSX took over, it really just makes for one of the finest train watching spots around, at least that I've ever been to, because it's a large area. It's not just a platform. They do have a platform with a scanner in it and lights and fans and tables and all that stuff. They even got a barbecue grill up there. But it also extends for about 3.5 city blocks, places where you can just park yourself, bring a lawn chair, sit in your car, sit on the grounds there, because it's all grass, you know, just all up and down the tracks. And it just, that coupled with the fact that all the traffic coming out of the Northeast that's going to Florida, all the traffic coming out of the Northwest that's going to Florida has to come through Folkestone, Georgia. And at one time, we were seeing 60 to 65 trains a day there in a 24-hour period. Oh, it was just very exciting. Of course, now with the changes in the economy, with the changes, you know, in electric power plants, and with precision scheduled railroading, that's changed quite a bit. The number of trains there has been basically cut in half in the last 10 years. You see about between 35 and 38 trains in a 24-hour period there now. I have to check with Andrew Stevenson, who's kind of our unofficial train logger there. He he keeps track of the train movements, but you do see a lot of stuff there, and most notably, you see 6 Amtrak movements during the day. You see both the North and South Silver Meteor, you see both the North and South Silver Star, and you see both North and South Auto Trains, which is a big treat for a lot of people who've never seen Auto Train. So you get to just sit right there and watch all that stuff go through, and that's basically the advantage of Folkestone. You can see a lot of it. On my channel, on my YouTube channel, Distant Signal, I've got quite a few videos up there that deal with at Folkestone on different levels, but you can get a kind of a flavor for the place from some of those videos. And coming up in December, the first Saturday of every December is Winter Watch. It's our wintertime version of Rail Watch, which is our springtime version of Winter Watch. We, back in the, I want to say the late 90s, or it was actually the year 2000, there were several of us who were online at that time. Now, this was before social media. The internet had just started to become a feature or a factor in communication. And back then, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Twitter, certainly didn't have TikTok or Instagram or any of that. But you did have several people around the country who hosted servers that would aggregate emails, so you could have these big group chats on there. And there was a one rail fan. He was out in Texas, and I can't remember his name now, but he created a server called RailSpot, and I was told about it at a train show in 1998. And so somebody created the list there and called it C-Rail, Southeast Rails. And slowly we started gathering members in it. And you would send the server an email, and then you would get back, all the responses to that. So that's how we got to know each other around the country. A lot of rail fans in Georgia, North Georgia, a lot of rail fans over in Alabama, and lots of us in Florida. The Florida rail fans really dominated that list. So anyway, I had been to Folkestone in 1995 for the first time, and after seeing the place, I said, this would be a great place to have a rail fan meetup here, and have a cookout and do that kind of stuff. And I kind of percolated it over the years. And finally, when this C-Rails server, this email server, came into its own, I said, hey, let's get together and do a meetup here. And what I wanted it to be originally, being a video person, I had taken the idea from the big show that they have in Cincinnati every year, and I'm blanking on the name of that now. Winter Rail, Summer Rail. And I said, let's do a video version of that. And the people in Folkestone at the Chamber of Commerce there accommodated us, and we set up a video display, presentation set up there. And we spent the whole day. You could bring your VHS tape. I'd come in there and show up to an hour's worth of train videos. And we sat there, watched train videos all day, in between everybody running to the windows when the crossing bells would start, because the trains would just be running all day. So it was really a really exciting thing. So we ended up calling it the event Rail Watch. So that's how that came to be. Well, we dispensed with the video presentation some years ago, and it just became an event where rail fans come to socialize and do their hobby and fellowship with other people who enjoy the hobby. And that's kind of what it's become. The city has really embraced the whole event, and it's really the city's deal now. This local chamber of commerce they have taken it over and added so much to it. Dana Quinn, the chamber director there, has done so much to expand the event. They brought in food trucks this past April, and they had little train rides in the big parking lot nearby, the big post office parking lot, and it's really become just a fun event. And we used to have a big cookout, but the thing got so big that we couldn't feed everybody.
Wow.
So that's kind of what it's become now. But it's just so much fun. Winter Watch is like I say, it's the wintertime version of that, where we all get together, and it's not as large as an event because it's the first weekend in December, and people are kind of busy that time of year. But well, back in the early days, there were those of us who couldn't wait a whole year to go back to Folkestone, so we created the biannual event in December and called it Winter Watch. And I get email all the time from people asking, well, what goes on at Winter Watch? What's the schedule? What's the admission price? And what are the requirements for it? And I always tell them there's none of that. There's no admission. There's no schedule. There's no program. There's no anything except just a whole bunch of rail fans descending on this small town in southeastern Georgia, and we just watch the trains. We just hang out and watch the trains, and everybody takes pictures, and that's just what it is. It's a whole Saturday full of that, and it's really just a lot of fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, it is certainly a small town. I mean, I'm looking at the population in 2019, it's just shy of 5,000 people. So that Saturday, that number of people rises considerably, the people that show up. And I've noticed so many of the places that have came in to embrace the rail fans. There's several places you can stay that are rail fan friendly. They're right along the right of way. So you literally can get up in the morning, go out the door, and there's the right of way.
Well, Dixie and Jim McGurn were really kind of the pioneers of that with their railside lodging that they have. Another couple, the crews across the road, they brought in an old SCL caboose and they painted it in family lines in the family line scheme, and they put a couple of beds in it and built a bathroom in it and started renting it out for rail fans.
Yeah, why not?
Then later on, they purchased an old line side cabin that was on the Atlantic coastline and brought it up there, and they rent that out. They fixed it up and they rent that out. Jim and Dixie McGurn did the same thing. They brought a caboose up and painted it. I'm not sure what kind of a caboose it is, whether it's an SCL M5 or what, but they painted it in Chessie colors, and I still go round and round with them about that. I have no idea why they painted that caboose in Chessie colors, because that is just not Chessie territory down there. Yeah. That is Atlantic coastline territory. But anyway, it's a beautiful caboose. What they did with that, they set up this caboose and put bunk beds in it, and a bathroom and a kitchen, and a huge porch on one end of it. So often these cabooses, there's no outside. You have that little tiny porch that's on cabooses, but they built a gigantic porch. You can have a big party on this porch. So there's that, and these are all right next to the tracks. I mean, they are right next to the tracks. And a couple of years ago, they took another building and kind of a 30-foot long garage type building and put it up at the turnout, which is just north of the downtown area. And north of the downtown area, it's about 500 feet up there, maybe 1,000 feet. So it's not far. But it's a beautiful facility. The turnout cabin, they call it, and those are all available for rent. And a new family has just come in that bought a piece of property that's on the other side of the tracks, on the east side of the tracks, right downtown at the corner of Martin Street and Railroad Avenue, and have developed it into a small RV park. I think they have 3 RV pads there with electric, water, and sewer hookups. Plus, they have a cabin in the back that used to be the old newspaper office in town. It was a home before that. It was probably a 1920s craftsman wooden house. Mm-hmm. But they have completely remodeled that. These guys are in the home construction business, so they really knew what they were doing. beautifully remodeled that house. It's called the Conductor's Cabin, and they rent that out now. And so there's all this lodging right around the railroad tracks, right in downtown Folkestone. It's just great. Bring your earplugs though, because there are 3 crossings in downtown Folkestone, and those trains blow for those crossings all day and all night. So that's the only knock I can put on any of those cabins, is it's noisy. But golly, it's just,
yeah. But when you're a rail fan, that noise doesn't bother you.
oh
no,
my
yeah,
gosh.
that's sheer delight.
I
You know,
mean,
when
it's
you
just
hear
like
music.
heaven. Just like heaven. You get up in the middle of the night, and those big loaded freight trains, those big loaded rock trains will come through and just shake the whole place. And it really is cool. So I urge everyone.
All the guys are saying, "Wow, this is so cool," and the wife's saying, "Oh, get me out of here."
Yeah, it's kind of like anything else that you take that guys would like. I like fishing cabins or hunting cabins. It's not some places that you'd probably bring your wife or girlfriend unless they were into that, because it's not a girly kind of place. But rail fanning isn't anyway.
My girlfriend wouldn't. Yeah.
Well, okay, we'll talk about that off the air, I guess.
But I mean, it looks like a really cool little town. I would definitely want to come out there and definitely stay the weekend, or just being able to check it out. I'm sure a lot of these places that you mentioned are probably booked up for the weekend.
They are booked already for Winter Watch this year, and I think they're booked for Rail Watch too. But there's a whole bunch of other weekends to go. And as you know, as those of you guys who live up north, down in South Georgia, which really Folkestone's really North Florida. They say it's in Georgia, but I still don't believe it. It's way too much of a Florida town to me. The weather in the wintertime is beautiful. I mean, it is beautiful. Now we have some cold days in winter. Sometimes in Winter Watch we'll get frozen out, but most of the time we just have beautiful weather down there.
Oh, I'm looking at the Chessie caboose here on Google Maps. It looks like a B&O bay window caboose. Yeah, you're right. It would be out of place in a Seaboard or an ACL location.
Well, that's probably why they paint it in those Chessie colors, because it was is an ex B&O caboose. That makes sense, but still, being a SCL fan the way I am, and a Seaboard man, I just really can't abide having that Chessie stuff in town like that.
Yeah, it's kind of sacrilege, I guess.
Like a Jones at a Smith family reunion.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like an amazing time, and boy, I would love to get down there.
So
it's a lot of fun.
Are you going this year?
I am.
So people will see you trackside.
Yeah, I'll be there. So I wouldn't miss it. It's only 4-hour drive from my house, so I just wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, it's super cool. I'm hoping to make it down there at some point, to be able to see, the action there, and just being able to see the town. As for a lot of lodging, is there a good number of places to eat locally in town?
There's a few. There's quite a few. You've got all the fast food. You've got McDonald's and Burger King. There's a Subway. There's a chicken place that's not a KFC. It's a privately owned chicken place that a lot of people really like. There's a Thai restaurant that gets rave reviews in town. There is a Mexican restaurant that's pretty good. And there, of course, is the Okefenokee restaurant. That is what we in the South affectionately call a meat and three, where you go for lunch there, and you've got the buffet, and you get for the $7.99 or whatever the price is, you get a meat and 3 sides, and they're all ready to go and everything, and they've got pretty good food at the Okefenokee, so there's no problem eating, except I'll caution you on Sundays. There's not a lot of stuff open on Sunday. There's still South Georgia down there, and those folks don't like to open up businesses on Sundays. The McDonald's is open because it's a gas station, and so is the Burger King. That's about it. But other than that, there's no problem eating.
Yeah, because I mean, the whole thing with rail fanning is, of course, the whole experience is being trackside and also having something good to eat while you're out and about. Whether
especially something local.
Yeah, something local.
Yeah. There's a barbecue place too that's down the road. They're in a caboose right out on US 301. It's a kind of a homemade caboose. I can't think of the name of the barbecue anyway, but the barbecue there's pretty good. There's lots to eat, and within not too far driving distance in Hilliard, which is just across the Florida-Georgia line right there, you got a couple of real good places. There's a seafood place, R&R Seafood and Wings. That's very good, and a couple of other places. There's also a barbecue place in Hilliard. So I'm just trying to think of where else around there. But
Rich, are you booking your plane tickets over there?
I'm trying to figure if I can do this, but convincing the wife to let me do it is going to be very difficult.
Yeah,
I know how that is.
Yeah.
Well, you got to fly into Jacksonville. I don't think. I think that's about as close as you could get commercial airline wise to Folkestone. That's a 40-minute drive up US 1.
Yeah, that's not. Flying to Atlanta isn't going to cut it.
No. You would be better to go to Tampa and drive up. Atlanta is not an easy drive to Folkestone. Because there's no roads that go straight there. You got to come down I-75 all the way to either Valdosta, or I think a lot of people come in at get off at Tifton maybe. They come across that way.
Yeah, there's just so many flights between Phoenix and Atlanta that you could pretty much just pick a time. But Jacksonville is a little bit more difficult, but I think I could do that.
So typically, people can hear the in the pavilion, they can hear the scanner, but you probably would recommend anywhere if they're venturing, either direction of the pavilion, to probably bring their own scanner so they can be able to hear the activity.
I recommend people bring their own scanner anytime they're rail fanning. I just hammer that into people. They'll say, well, I saw a train come by today. It was a freight train, but I didn't have my scanner with me, so I couldn't hear it. And I always say, why didn't you have your scanner with you? Why don't you carry it everywhere with you? I'm kind of a fanatic about that. But, you should always have your scanner with you when you're rail fanning anywhere, especially in Folkestone. Now you'll be able to hear the scanner at the platform, but there's a lot of places where you can't hear that. You're up the street a ways, or in at having lunch at Whistling Dixie, or that's the other place I forgot about. Oh, she's going to kill me.
Was Jalen's Barbecue and Grill? Was that the one you were thinking of earlier?
Yes. Yes, that's it.
Look at Rich. He's played a breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And Whistling Dixie for lunch. Now they're not serving lunch every day now. I think they're working on some kind of schedule like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But the lunch there is just incredible. All homemade stuff, homemade soups and sandwiches, and
so tomorrow
ask for Dixie's banana pudding.
Next day it's going to be Quick Chick.
Quick Chick is very good. Quick Chick very good. They use the old KFC recipes for a lot of their stuff.
And there's Whistling Dixie.
Yeah.
And then
and the Cane Pole. The Cane Pole restaurant is right next to the platform. Okay. And they have excellent hamburgers. I have not eaten there, but I've talked to so many people who've had their hamburgers, and they love their hamburgers at the Cane Pole.
Is there a Waffle House?
There's not a Waffle House. There's a Huddle House, which is kind of a Waffle House knockoff, I guess. And there's a Dairy Queen. There's also a Dairy Queen.
Of course, it's anything south of Tennessee. There's going to be a Dairy Queen in every town,
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, this brings us to our second segment of the show, and this is an important thing. We'll talk about is planning. Your rail fanning adventure. I mean, we're almost done with 2021. We all three of us have been rail fanning. We're on the show, of course. So, I know, Danny, and I agree with you. You start a lot of your adventures early in the morning. You like to get up, get out on the road, and start your day early.
Absolutely. I know that's tough for younger rail fans, especially because I remember when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I never ever, unless it was for work or school, I never got up before 9 o'clock in the morning. And if I could sleep until noon, I would. But I'm telling you, kids, the daybreak, sunrise, that's when stuff is happening on the railroad. That's when stuff is happening. Trains are arriving at terminals. Trains are being ready to depart from terminals. Switch crews are coming to work. There's just a lot of stuff happening early in the morning. So I always recommend starting early. Unless you like the nighttime stuff, going on into the night. And I'm not a night rail fan so much anymore. I used to do some of it, but I recommend early in the morning when possible.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of things have changed in the last several decades. Like you said, it's so easy to be able to coordinate these get-togethers, with the internet and social media, and for things like these really cool places you can stay along trackside. It's an easy way for them to advertise without spending a fortune. They put up a website, algorithms, make it so it's searched through Google, and voila, you come up with, put in Folkestone, Georgia, places to stay, and it populates all these really cool places that you can go to. The other thing that's came about, of course, is these rail fanning parks and pavilions. Scenic railroads have been around for a while, and railroad museums, but these parks and pavilions give people an opportunity to be able to rail fan safely, and then to be able to meet other rail fans.
Yep. That's exactly right. And so many towns, especially smaller towns, especially have realized the benefit of having a rail fan friendly place, because a lot of these smaller towns, that they've got their railroad just runs right through the middle of town, because when they built those, that's where they wanted them. That's where the towns, wanted them, even if, and towns grew up around the railroads. Of course, in the latter half of the 20th century, everything started to move away from that. Nobody wanted to be near the railroad tracks. You didn't even want to have your business near the railroad tracks. Yeah. So, but they're finding that the towns, the local chambers of commerce, the local visitors bureaus, and other, the tourism and convention people have realized the benefit of turning some of those facilities, old railroad stations, old other, businesses that were right along the tracks, into rail fan viewing spots and museums. A lot of them are made into museums, as you know. This one you've got on the screen here, I believe, is Dalton, Georgia.
Yes, that's correct.
And they've just done a spectacular job with that one. That's an old NC and St. L station, I believe. Somebody will call me out on that if I'm wrong. But later it was Southern, and they have turned that into a museum and a conference center. And this big porch here that you can see runs the length of the building, and you can just camp out on that thing all day. Bring a chair or sit in one of the benches right there, and you can just sit there all day and watch. And the cool thing about Dalton, as you may or may not have seen in my video on Dalton, which I believe is called 3 City Rail Fan Adventure, it's currently available on my YouTube channel. This is both CSX and Norfolk Southern running right in front of the station there. So you're seeing all this traffic all day long because the CSX WNA subdivision, which is the XL&N coming out of Chattanooga, marries up with the Norfolk Southern also coming out of Chattanooga, and both of them headed to Atlanta. I've never read the history on this, but for some reason, both of these lines converged on Dalton and made their way through 5 miles of the Dalton area right together on the same piece of real estate. And so it is a serious rail fanning location right there. You can sit there all day and just see trains nonstop. I mean, again, with the caveat that since precision scheduled railroading, that both railroads have adopted, there's are fewer trains now than there used to be, and you will have lulls in there, sometimes of an hour or more, but there still are a lot of trains through there.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot. I'll get some lulls when I was living down in North Carolina, because there's track work being done. Their work crews are out, and then I would listen to the scanner, and then eventually I would hear, "All right, you're almost clear out of there. I've got a bunch of traffic coming at you."
Oh, so I know that's the greatest thing
that.
You can hear on the radio.
Yeah.
Yes,
you get the whole fleet coming at you now.
All right. I'm
Frazzled
ready.
dispatcher is nagging the maintenance of way people, or as one of my dispatcher friends called, maintenance in the way.
Yeah.
But calling them up and saying, "Listen, guys, I got to have this. I got a whole bunch of trains coming." You go, "Oh, okay. Now I'm staying. Now I'm staying for a while."
Or you get to, or what happens with me more often is you get someplace, there's a rail fan there just getting ready to leave. You talk to them and say, "Oh, yeah, you should have been here 20 minutes ago."
Oh, there's always the should have beens.
Yes.
Walk up any place where there's a rail fan and they got a should have been story for you.
Yeah.
Oh, and that became a running joke in Folkestone at our meetups. We'd walk up and the person joining the crowd, would always say, you should have been here 20 minutes ago. Steam locomotive just came by.
Yeah.
Steam locomotive, I swear. It was unbelievable. That was always the running joke. You should have been here. And I called them the should have beens.
Yeah. Well, I went rail fanning on Saturday, and I was sitting in the depot parking lot for 4 hours, and I saw one train on the Sunset route in Arizona. One train came through. It was not a happy day.
Wow. And out there, that's the Bnsf, right?
No, the UP, the old Southern Pacific. Yeah, the old Southern Pacific.
Oh, that's the old SP. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And you guys don't have the radio chatter out there that we do here, do you?
Well, there's detectors, and where I was sitting was about 5 or 6 miles from the detector in either direction. There's one 7 miles that way and 6 miles that way.
So you can hear them.
You'll be able to hear them, yeah. And the double track ends about 5 or 6 miles past that detector. So there's always a lot of chatter about that. When you can hit that double track, I can get the eastbounder through and stuff. But it was just one of those days where there just wasn't a lot of traffic that day.
Yeah,
I know, and it probably this supply chain issue at LA and LB, as I call them, is probably affecting a lot of that.
Well, it's made the BNSF, which is the line going through the northern part of Arizona. That is like probably the busiest freight traffic in the country these days, that line. And that's just nonstop. Even with PSR, it is still just nonstop.
Now that brings up an interesting point, because in 2022, I want to plan a trip out to Arizona, somewhere out there, and I want to be on that BNSF Transcon. Yeah. And I would like to be in some place where I can sit down and just watch a bunch of trains. Now, where would you suggest I go?
Flagstaff.
Flagstaff?
Yeah. You can sit in the depot parking lot. And that's what I do. I pull up and I sit in the depot parking lot and I watch the trains go by. There's a public restroom in the depot that's open all day. There's restaurants and other businesses within walking distance. So I just leave the car there, and there's a great pizza place across the street.
I knew you were going to go to the pizza place.
And there's all kinds of food. Every restaurant you can ever think of is right there. And breweries, if you're into that kind of stuff. It's a college town, so there's always something to look at.
Oh, okay.
And
pizza. I'm sure everybody knows this. Pizza is the best rail fanning food that there is. Because you can get a whole pizza and just sit there and just eat on it at will.
Yeah.
And save half for later, and it's still just fine.
Yeah. And in the depot, it's also the welcome center for the city. And there's a gift shop. They got magazines. You can buy Trains magazine there, and rail fan paraphernalia. And it's all right there. Like I say, it's a great place to watch trains.
Well, cool. I'm gonna put that on my list because I've never seen anything on the BNSF out west, and I really want to get out there and do it.
Yeah, it is good. There's other places you can go to, but that's the most ideal place for rail fanning.
Yeah.
Not a lot of scanner traffic there, though.
As long as the trains are there, you don't need a scanner.
You really don't. You really don't. And the gates will come down. It gives you a good warning to get out of the car. And
now, how do you know what the train IDs are, or do you?
I don't. It's it's an intermodal. About half the trains are double stack. There's a few trailer trains going through there at TOFC, and then about 10% of the trains are manifest or coal.
Okay, because we're really spoiled here in the East. On the CSX, they have to call out over the radio every signal.
No, they don't do that here.
As they approach each signal, they'll call out the signal aspect, the locomotive number, the train ID, the direction of travel, every single signal. So you'll start hearing it crackle, and then 20 minutes later, every time he's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, he's coming toward you. And I thought that's how all railroads were. And
that's an East Coast thing. I saw your last video about locomotive numbers where you were talking about just that. And I wish they did that here. And no.
I noticed, Norfolk Southern will, depending on the crew, will sometimes do it and sometimes won't. When I was in North Carolina, I'm now in Cincinnati now. So
depends on the territory.
Yeah.
I think the old Southern Railway did that, and the Norfolk and Western didn't.
Right.
And so if that crew came from the Southern, they're probably still so used to doing it that they just continue to do it, whether their rules require them to do or not.
I think that could be. Now, I know on the GSNF, which is the Georgia Southern and Florida line from Macon, Georgia to Valdosta and into Jacksonville, which is now the Southern, Norfolk Southern. They call out the mileposts as they go past them. Now they won't do a big. They won't do a big. A big list of things. They'll just call out. NS 331 passing the A22, and that's it. But still, that's something. So
well, out here the trains go so fast that the BNSF they're going 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. That guy would be on the radio almost constantly.
Yeah, they'd be on it all the time. So
It'd be interesting to listen to if they did do it.
Oh yeah.
So
there's just not that much radio activity out there.
So typically when you go out on one of these trips, I know you bring your video camera equipment, you bring a scanner. What other tools of the trade would you recommend for somebody to bring with them, when they want to spend the day out rail fanning?
Well, you have your scanner, and I have usually 3 scanners that I bring with me in addition to the one in my truck. And of course you bring your camera, and all the gear, and all the batteries. So that's the one thing that has gotten to kind of like a real chore now is all the battery charging that I have to do before a rail fan trip. But that's done the night before. I have a checklist that I do of batteries that I have to charge, drone batteries and camera batteries and scanner batteries and all the rest of that stuff. It's quite a few. Oh, and the GoPro batteries. I have a GoPro that I use, and but also, bring with you if you got timetables, bring that timetable. I would bring a map, of the area. You could always use Google Maps, on your phone, that's just as good. It's just, to me, it's not quite as friendly, but it certainly works, and it'll certainly get you to where you need to be. And I always bring something to eat and drink. And anymore, I've gotten to the point where I try to bring my own food and beverages for the whole day, because I have and it's only taken me 25 years to learn this, but I've gotten to so many times I have been in a McDonald's or Burger King drive-through, and I'll hear the train that I'm after that day call the signal just right down the road from me. And there he goes. And I've never to be seen again. So I've just gotten to the point where I've stopped all that, going to get food, unless it's at the end of the day. I do that, and I'm trying to feature that a little more in my videos, places that I stop for lunch or dinner at the end of the day. So, but other than that, I suggest bring your own victuals.
Yes. Especially, if you're planning on being trackside during the summer, or and during the warm weather, you want to definitely stay hydrated as much as possible.
And bring sunscreen too, and bring bug repellent.
Yes.
I don't know about where you guys are, but in Florida and Georgia, the bugs can be horrific if you don't prepare for them. So bring a good bug repellent with DEET in it, and because there's nothing worse than being run out of a place because of mosquitoes or flies or stuff like that.
I've been out rail fanning up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where they got mosquitoes about the size of helicopters.
I have heard that from several people, that the UP of Michigan has the worst mosquitoes in the world, puts Florida in the shade.
They are huge.
I have heard that.
Yeah, and they're crazy bad. And you're right. Get a can of off, and you're fine. But boy, they are nasty up there.
Yeah, I get Deep Woods off in the dry version. Yeah, you got to take a shower when you get home, because you don't want that stuff on your sheets.
Yeah, but then you go to Iowa and Nebraska, and it's the biting flies.
No, those will drive you crazy. Those will flat drive you crazy. So bring bug repellent.
Yeah. What else do you bring with you?
I'm just.
Reference materials. You have timetables or railfan timetables.
I always bring timetables, and I have a book. I have several books that I bring, that I compile. There are 3-ring binders that I have. Like this one is the CSX S line. I don't know if you can read that or not, but this is the CSX S line. Including Jacksonville Terminal. And in that, I just have all kinds of information that I have assembled. That's the latest train list of what you're going to see on the S line. These are the timetables of the different subdivisions. And one thing that CSX does, I don't know about Bnsf and UP, but CSX, in their timetables, at the end of each section, they have a list of all of the road crossings that have automatic warning devices, gates and lights. Cool. And that put the mile post and the name of the road there. Huge benefit.
You ever thought about putting that on like an iPad or something?
Nope. I don't want any more work to do. I just print this stuff out on my printer, and I put it in this book here. And I also carry this everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Signals.
That's good. Yep.
And I get a copy of that in each one of these books, and I've got about 8 of these books for the different places I go.
Cool.
Yeah, you're just like me. I have the binders as well, because I want to just be able to flip to it and not tie up a device, and just be able to have it open. I don't have a binder for up here. I did have, for Georgia, Tennessee and North Carolina, but I haven't made anything for Cincinnati as of yet. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just so awesome to be able to. Yes, those books are phenomenal.
These things, I had these for everywhere. I got about 8 of them now, I think. These are actually, if you don't bring anything else, just bring this, because this will put you this will give you all the information you need, and it'll
I think that's the same. Oh no, you got the brown one.
This is the Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina one. This is my second one. I wore out the first one, and I was so happy when Amazon started carrying these. That you can buy these on Amazon, and anyway, I recommend these. I think they're still about $30, which a lot of people balk at. But let me tell you, there's information in this like you can't believe. These will put you on maps anywhere you want to go. That's just I just call them the Bible of rail fanning. I don't know who that British
I just
guy,
wish
Mike
they were
Walker,
updated
is.
a little more often. Some of them are getting kind of aged, but they're great, and it's really kind of funny because they're written by a guy from England,
that Mike Walker fella.
Yeah, Ian Andrews, and and it's and Mike Walker is the writer, and Ian Andrews is the publisher, and it's kind of amazing that the English have better. The Brits have better information on our railroads.
Way better.
Of course, they're a much more organized rail fan thing than Americans. I mean, if you've ever been to the UK, those guys get detailed, and they got notebooks with their locomotive numbers.
I get a lot of email from folks in the UK, and they are so much more detailed than we are.
Yeah.
They'll ask me, well, why didn't you tell the locomotive the model numbers of every one of those locomotives that were in the contest? And why don't you ever talk about the truck bolsters? And why don't you talk about, it's like, I can't get into all that. I don't know about a lot of that.
Yeah.
B, I don't care about it. So.
Yeah, to a lesser extent, there are a lot of Canadian rail fans do the same thing, but it's just never been that big a thing for American rail fans to do that. So they are the Fulmers in the UK are just a little bit different breed than they are here.
I've heard that. I really want to get over there sometime and
the plane spotters do the same thing.
Yeah, I know. I know a few of those too, because there's the hobbies intersect a little bit. Yeah. And I know some plane spotters who are kind of fanatics like that. Yeah.
And obviously I do both of those, but at the time I spent in the UK, it was fascinating. I really enjoyed the time there, but that was like information overload.
Yeah. But I think they were able to do it because their area is so much more compressed than ours is. I mean, they don't have the mileage that we do, and our trains are so much bigger than theirs.
Yeah,
and so I think they have.
Yeah, and they're much more passenger oriented than we are here.
Yes,
too, so.
Yes, and they always, every time I put up an Amtrak video, I just did one on auto train loading and unloading here a couple of months back, and just got bombarded from the UK about that. Why should that take an hour to unload? We can unload ours of our Channel auto carrier in 26 minutes. And you never have to get out of your car. And I said, well, yeah, they're only going, they're only on that train for 35 minutes, and these guys on auto train are there for 19 hours. So it's a whole different thing. And
that was a great video too. So.
Well, thank you. I don't like to get into comparing the U.S. passenger train network with the Europe, because we're just so far behind them.
Right, but we're so far ahead in freight trains. So
way far ahead in freight trains. We carry so much more on freight, but
it's just
I wish we could catch up in the passenger business.
It's different here. We are much more wide spread out. and a much heavier volume of freight traffic. They're more passenger oriented. They don't have the freeway and highway networks that we have here.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of people who, wish we had that type of a passenger network here. It's just, it's going to take lots of money and lots of work to rebuild that.
Excuse me. For people that haven't been down in your neck of the woods, is there any, like in Florida, is there any like tourist trains or anything down in that neck of the woods that you would recommend for people to check out?
Well, I recommend the one that's near Tampa at Parrish. It's the Florida Railroad Museum. It's at Parrish, which is just across the Manatee County border down there, and they run trains on the weekend. They have about 6 miles of track, and they've got some really neat equipment, and they run trains every weekend. It's a fun ride, so I recommend that. I recommend the St. Mary's Railroad. They have a tourist run there, and that's at St. Mary's, Georgia, which is just right across the Florida-Georgia line there, right on the Atlantic coast at St. Mary's, Georgia. It used to be a huge paper mill there, and this 12 or 13 mile line served that paper mill. They were the connection that went out to Kingsland, Georgia, to connect with the Seaboard Airline Maine and bring commodity into St. Mary's, and then they took finished paper out. Well, the paper mill's been gone now for 20 years, but the railroad is still in operation, and they have a freight business. But on the weekends, they run a tourist line, and they do some pretty cool stuff. So I recommend them. There is a freight. There is a tourist train operation in Mount Dora, Florida, which is near Orlando. I'm not sure the status on them right now, so I'll have to stop it there. I wouldn't want to give any false information on them. But there's quite a few places. Now you get down to Miami, there's a Gold Coast Museum down there. And that's a fun thing. Also, in Fort Myers, they have a dinner train down there. The Seminole Gulf runs out of Fort Myers. It runs north, I think, to Bonita Springs. It's along the coastline. It's ex-Atlantic coastline trackage, I believe, there. And they run a dinner train in the evenings, and I think they still have a murder mystery on it, where they bring actors on board. And they kill somebody, and you have to figure out who did it. And it's a fun trip, and the food is very good. So I recommend that Seminole Gulf dinner train out of Fort Myers. So yeah, we've got quite a few tourist operations here in Florida and South Georgia. Also, Cordele, Georgia, which is north of Folkestone, right about the middle of the state, maybe a little south of the middle, but it's on I-75. Cordele, Georgia, looks like Cordell, but it's pronounced Cordele, and they have the Heart of Georgia Railroad there, and on the weekends they do a tourist train, and they do a nice run. They take you out to Americus, Georgia, and see the old plantation home there, and they have old shops in downtown Americus that they let you get out and shop, and then they take you to Plains, Georgia, which is the home of former President Jimmy Carter, and you get out and see the birthplace of Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy may even be around there, cool. if you're lucky. So that's a cool ride. That's the Heart of Georgia Railroad in Cordele. So I recommend that.
I have that camera up on my screen right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. That Virtual Railfan's got a camera there at the Cordele platform.
Yeah, I'd had Folkestone up, but that one's down right now. So.
Yeah.
It's so cool, just being able to, I mean, I'm so happy for these museums because it preserves some of the history and it keeps some of these lines that possibly could be abandoned active, to a degree.
Yes, I think anything that keeps these lines going and basically out of the hands of the rails to trails people is a good thing.
Yeah.
We can keep those lines, as many railroad lines operational as possible. It's a good thing.
I know when I was living up in Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, saw the value of keeping these lines active, so they started purchasing up lines. They bought one line that was 22 miles. It basically ran from Framingham to Mansfield. I believe it's 22 miles, $1 million a mile.
Dang.
$22 million they spent on purchasing that right away.
Yeah. Well, the state of Wisconsin was really big in purchasing, railroads as they were being abandoned. And they have been very successful at getting them rehabbed. And there was one line that went from Fox Lake, Illinois, which is the far northwest suburbs, up to Janesville. And that line had been run in 20 years. It had trees this big around growing between the rails. And then they got an operator to run it, and they went and rehabbed that line, and now they're using that all the time. And
I really wish the state of Florida would do that with the lines that we have left. I was hoping that the state would have purchased the Tallahassee line, which is the line that runs from Jacksonville to Pensacola. But another operator bought that, and they're trying to build traffic on it right now. But I wish the state would buy some of these lines, and even some of these rails to trails lines that are there but as yet undeveloped. I wish they'd get some of those, and just to protect them, because once those things go, you don't get them back, and you can't build any more lines like that. And if I may,
Wisconsin was rail banking, is what they call it.
Yeah, exactly. Also, there's one line that I did not mention, a tourist line in Florida that I forgot, and it's one of the best that there is. The U.S. Sugar people down in Clewiston, near Lake Okeechobee, have really gotten into the tourist railroad business in a big way. They just last year they completely restored an old FEC steam locomotive that's a 2 something or other. I don't know what the classification of it is, but it's a beautiful machine. They just did a super job with it, and they pull tourist trains with that. They power it with cooking oil. So it's a real clean operation, and they have just purchased from the city of Jacksonville the 1504, I think it was. It was an Atlantic coastline. I want to say Pacific, but I could have been wrong. Anyway, it was an old passenger locomotive, and they're in the process of restoring that. Cool. So this railroad down there that U.S. Sugar has, they have got over 300 miles of tracks down there. And a lot of it is 40-mile-an-hour continuous welded rail.
Whoa.
So they have a serious piece of private railroad out there.
Yeah.
And they are bent on building a tourist railroad operation there. And this guy who's running U.S. Sugar right now is the type of guy who can get it done. So I'm, for one, am happy to see something like this, because we all know how difficult it is for volunteer groups to get these things done, to restore a steam locomotive or get a tourist operation going when you're just relying on volunteers. Because usually those operations are 2 or 3 people, and then a bunch of peripheral people who aren't as interested as you'd like them to be.
Yeah, it takes lots of money,
and it takes lots of money. And when you just already have the money and want that as one of your goals, it makes it a lot better. So my hat's off to U.S. Sugar. So if you get the chance to come to Florida and go down there and see the U.S. sugar tourist operation, by all means do that. But
Cool.
bring your bug repellent to that too.
Yeah.
That's going to be buggy.
Yeah, and alligator repellent. Yeah.
Well, there's no point in bringing that because once you've had that encounter, it's pretty much done anyway.
Well,
so.
you don't have to be faster than the alligator. You just have to be faster than your friend. Yeah.
Right. And be able to make really fast right turns.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's so, I mean, have you, I know I'm getting a little off topic and we'll get right back into it. Have you done any chasing abandoned railroad lines? You know, I mean, because there are some lines that you have. There was one, I haven't seen it in person. When I was in North Carolina, in Statesville, North Carolina, there's a huge abandoned railroad trestle in the middle of the woods.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I mean, there's like all types of things, you know, that, you know, the line became abandoned. They never took it apart, but there's artifacts in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, I love that. I can do that all day. I don't do it so much nowadays, but I used to love to do that. I stomped the old Miami extension from Coleman, Florida, just south of Wildwood. It was the Seaboard Airline Miami extension that S. Davies Warfield built in the 1920s to access Miami because he knew what Miami was going to be. And so he branched off from the Seaboard Main Line there at just south of Wildwood and built that railroad straight, and I mean straight, to West Palm Beach down there and then down to Miami. And CSX abandoned much of that line between Auburndale and Wildwood in the late 80s, I want to say. But a lot of that line, you know, is still there. They pulled up all the tracks and all the signals are gone, of course. But I went out there one Saturday and I hiked that, as much of that as I could, and saw the old bridges there, and there were still some mileposts up, and it might have been one or two of those that are not there now after I left, but it was really cool to see all that stuff. I love doing that. Unfortunately, it doesn't make for very good videos because there's nothing to see. So I don't do it so much anymore. But
I think abandoned railroads are almost as fascinating as current ones. So.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you've got that big trestle, you know, like, or in the middle of the woods. I mean, that's where a drone would come in handy to be able to
absolutely.
you know, give that overhead shot to be able to see, you know, I mean, that it would be a lot of work, but, you know, being able to find a whole bunch of these and then doing it as one video, you know, showing the big, massive things that are left in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I know of a couple of those that are on the Seaboard Main Line between Jacksonville and Savannah, Georgia, out there where the CSX abandoned that line. And a couple of those big trestles, there's a turnkey bridge that's still intact out there over one of the rivers. So you may be right. That might be a good, interesting video, especially with drone stuff. And drones are beautiful now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing. That's the only way you probably could actually show it safely.
A lot of it, yeah. Because a lot of these things you just can't get to.
All right.
So we'll jump into the final segment of tonight's show before we get into the Q&A. So you actually hinted towards this, that you're planning on making a trip possibly to Arizona. Is there any other things that are on your bucket list for 2022?
Yes, there are a few things. I want to go to Arizona, like you say. I also would like to go to Winnipeg, Canada. I hear that is some serious railroading there.
The last show, I think it was, we did. I did a couple pictures of the Winnipeg Water District Railroad.
Oh,
from when I was up there back in like 1988 or 89. And I don't know if it's still in operation, but there was it went out to the water facility from town into the water facility. And that was a really interesting operation. I'm not sure if they're still there, but if they are, that would be a great thing to look for.
And I hope to go in the middle of the winter. I don't know if that'll be this coming winter or it'll have to be next year, but I want to go to Winnipeg, Canada in the middle of the winter because I hear there's just nothing but snow.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see that.
Yeah, well, being a Florida boy, it's going to be interesting.
I'll probably have to rent some kind of clothes for that because I don't think I own anything heavy enough for that. But you're right. I also want to go to Maine. I'd like to see Pan Am Railway. I've never been up there for that. I'd like to do that. I also want to go to New York. I want to see the Hudson River line up there. I've never seen that. So those are some of the things that I hope to do in 2022. One of these days, before too long, and I guess I better not put it off too long, but I want to go to the Hobo Convention in Britt, Iowa, which is the first week in August every year. I just want to see what that's like. I just want to see what if those are legit hobos or they're. No, you don't think so?
No. I was at that once. Being a Midwestern boy, I was there, and it's a bunch of wannabes.
Really, you think? Really? Yeah. Because ever since I saw that National Geographic documentary that all of us have seen from the 80s, what is it? Love Those Trains.
Yeah.
They did a whole segment on that hobo convention there. And these, I think back then, those were some legit hobos.
There's a small percentage of them that actually are guys that ride the rails and stuff like that. But, most of these guys are, they pull up on their Escalade and, and change their clothes and,
yeah. I could see that. But still, I think it would be.
It's like the guys that go to the motorcycle thing in South Dakota.
Sturgis.
In Sturgis, they trailer the bike, and then 20 miles out, they park the pickup truck and trailer, and then ride into town.
Yeah. Born to be wild.
Yeah. Born to be mild.
Definitely. If you do go up to Maine, a couple places I would recommend is, of course, the Seashore Trolley Museum, which is in Kennebunkport. And then also the Maine Narrow Gauge Museum, which is in Portland, which is right along the waterfront. So the great thing that I've seen over the last several years, I used to live in Massachusetts, so I follow them on social media, is they really got some great people running the Seashore Trolley Museum. They've gotten a lot more volunteers. They also partnered up with a vocational school because it's a perfect place, to have vocational students learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Electricity, woodworking, welding, all that is in restoration of those trolleys. And I've noticed that they've gained more. They have students coming in doing this stuff, and they really enjoy doing it, and they end up not only they end up becoming volunteers in the grand scheme of things, which is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like a great operation. I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah. I just looked up that the Greater Winnipeg Water District Railroad is still in operation up there in Winnipeg. And we actually got a cab ride when we were up there.
Cool.
Knocking on the door and asking, and sure, come on, we're going to be leaving in about half an hour. Just, And little switcher was great. We had a great time. But if you're going to go in the wintertime, make sure you bring several layers of clothes.
I was going to say, ski clothes probably, right?
Yeah. So, what do you think, Jonathan?
Well, why don't we dive into the question portion of the broadcast? But yeah, I mean, this is a lot of fun. I really was excited to be able to do a show with you, Danny. I mean, you brought in a lot of information, with our current slideshow, which is awesome.
I didn't realize there was any comments. I was clicked on the private chat tab.
Yeah, there's a whole slew of them.
I thought the comments. So, there's not really many comments here tonight.
Oh,
I just clicked on the comment section, and there's like a million of them there. Okay.
Yeah, we'll go through those here in a minute.
Yeah.
What do you think, Johnny? Do you have a couple more slides you need to do before we do it?
Yeah, let's do that real quick. What I can do is I can pull up. I just want to remind everybody, to stay connected with Train Aficionado. Follow us on social media. The Trackside Bulletin, of course, is our newsletter, which you can sign up at trainaficionado.com. Follow, like, and subscribe to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to Train Aficionado on YouTube, and of course, Danny Harmon, Distant Signal, on YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe because this is great to have Danny in this element versus the produced videos. We got him live and in an awesome way, to be able to interact with us, of course, and of course you viewers as well. So we really love having you guys being a part of the show. And of course, don't forget the Scanner Guys coming up Wednesday, November the 3rd. We're going to be talking about Macs and scanners. Now, two things that typically don't go together, but Rich has been doing a little bit of testing with the M1 processor. So he's got some information about that and what you can and can't do and some workarounds. So Rich is going to take us in a deep dive with Macs and scanners. So definitely tune in this Wednesday. And of course, next month, December the 6th, 2021, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, Train Aficionado Live. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We really would appreciate that.
I am so there for that show on Wednesday. If you guys are going to talk about Macs in relation to scanners, because I'm a Mac guy. I only own one PC, and that's to program my radios with.
Yes.
It's a really old one. It weighs about 40 pounds, I think. It's a laptop. And that's the only reason I have a PC is to program my radios with.
Yeah,
because
that's a
can't
legitimate.
do it with Macs.
Yeah, that's a legitimate. That's one of the solutions that we're going to be doing. I think, Johnny, you do the same thing, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I use my Mac as my daily runner, and then I'm using the only reason why I keep PC around is to program radios. But I mean, there's other ways to be able to do it. I mean, you can have a computer, with Windows 7, be able to do the job. You really don't need something crazy, like an older computer to be able to do a lot of, the scanner programming. But there is some workarounds. So Rich is going to take a deep dive on that on Wednesday. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay. All right, cool.
All right, so that'll be fun. All righty. So I'm going to start from the last comments and work my way up just because they're going to be a little more topical. So a great suggestion from our buddy Dale. When you go up to the Northeast, go up to LL Bean. It's in, was that Portland?
No, it's in, if you want to go to the original place, it's at Freeport, Maine, just north of Portland. So yeah, you may be able to get your winter coat there. You may be able to get your gear.
That's a great idea.
And that place is fascinating.
Excellent idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to see LL Bean.
Yeah,
I mean, they've broken that out. It used to be one building, and then they broke it out to a couple different locations.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tourist attraction all unto itself.
Yes. Yeah. And then, of course, there is, if you pass the outlets, you're more than likely to find an LL Bean outlet. So if you're looking to get some, save some cash, that may be a good option as well.
I'd love to go to LL Bean. There are two places I'd like to go, and LL Bean's one of them. The other one is B&H Photo in New York. I always wanted to visit there.
I've been there.
Jonathan gushes about that place.
Yeah, I mean, they get free mentions on both of our shows.
Oh, good.
But yeah,
I was in New York City a 3 years ago. I wanted to go up there, but it was just too far away, and I knew I'd get lost on the New York. Yeah,
you were in Lower Manhattan, so you weren't anywhere near there. It's not too far away from, it's a little bit of a walk, but not too far away from Times Square and the Empire State Building.
Okay,
and you go in there, and it's like overwhelming. It's like everything's there. You've got camera straps, you've got lenses, you've got, it's just so much, it's like, wow, you have everything at your fingertips.
I mean, I go through, at the end of the year when I'm doing my taxes, I go through my business receipts, and almost all of them, with the exception of hotels and gas, are B&H Photo.
Yeah,
because I just buy so much stuff from those guys. It's just incredible.
Dale also mentions a lot of people are interested in the old abandoned DC powerhouses scattered along I-90 and the old lines. The Milwaukee Road electric service, electric lines used to run through Montana. It was all electrified up there, and that's where Dale's from. And having rail fanned the old Milwaukee Road out there before and after they abandoned it, when I first started rail fanning, the electric service had already ended, and they were running diesels on it. And then a couple years later, they pulled it all up. But having to go through there, just see those old artifacts of the Milwaukee Road up in Montana, Idaho, and Washington State is really cool. And to see some of the abandoned tunnels and bridges and powerhouses, yeah, that's a lot of fun.
That would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So apparently one of our friends say that there are some legit hobos that go to the Brit thing, but they usually don't go to the festivities. They hang out in the jungle. So the hobo jungle there.
Yeah. So I would just like to meet my my YouTube hero, Ran Out on a Rail.
Oh, I've seen a couple of
I would hope that he's there.
Yeah.
Man, he just does the coolest videos, I think, that on YouTube, right?
And he always has his radio with him, so
Yep, he's always got that scanner with him, and he's got it's just beautiful stuff.
He's got to have a ton of batteries with him. I mean,
lots of batteries. Nice. That's the guy you should ask about prepping for a rail fan trip, because there ain't no getting off and going to the store. And those things. So
and he's on there long enough where there's frequency changes, where he's got to keep up with the frequency changes.
Got to roll over, when they change frequencies. So, but I guess if you have the Bearcat 125 AT with all 97 AAR channels programmed into it, you can just scan them all, and you don't have to worry about that, right?
That's exactly what I like.
Like you, I carry multiple radios. So usually what I will have is one radio will have the known frequencies. And then if I'm rail fanning somewhere where I'm not familiar, I will run the service search, for railroads. Thank goodness I did it. The last time I was up at the Horseshoe Curve, Altoona, Pennsylvania, they changed frequencies.
Yeah, Norfolk Southern has changed a lot of their frequencies all over the place.
So I brought my scanner and I said, "Oh yeah, the programming would be good, So I'm there and I don't hear a peep on the radio. I'm like, "What's going on here?" So then I grab my other radio, run that in service search, and I'm like, "Oh, well, there's the new channel. There's the new channel."
Right. And that's what I use my Bearcat for, is to find those frequencies when I'm in foreign territory. Now I see my friend CJ Griggs is on with us. He knows about the other scanners that I carry, which are Kenwoods, and on the Kenwood you can just dial in you can direct address the frequency you want, the channel number after you've put it in there. So, and I do that, and you can actually build a scan list with those things, which is nice, but you still have to know what that frequency is, and the Bearcat's the best way to do that.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing with my two-way radios that I use for rail fanning, just because of the better sensitivity sometimes. But I'll program all 97 channels in channel number slots. So when I hear him say go to channel 30, I just go to channel 30.
Right over.
I don't have to remember what the frequency is. So
exactly.
Jim asks, you're going to go back and finish your shoot for the auto train?
I am. I'm glad you asked that. Now that the weather has cooled off, I'm definitely going back. And because that's an easier shoot, because you go in the late morning, and they're out. They're usually departing by about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's an easier shoot. So I'll do that. Hopefully, probably not before the first of the year, but who knows? Maybe. But I definitely want to finish that. Thank you for asking.
Seaboard System fan, who's probably one of your buddies, reminds us that there's an Azalea Sprinter. It's a new passenger operation in South Georgia near Valdosta.
That's correct. It's near Valdosta. It's can't think of the name of the town offhand, but I remember this is new passenger excursion. I haven't been on it. I haven't talked to anybody who's been on it, but I hear, Seaboard System fan. That must be Charles Burgess. Charles Burgess from Cairo, Georgia.
Okay.
Anyway, that's supposedly a really good tourist operation there.
Yeah. And they got a new unit, which is always great for a passenger train.
Yeah, heck yeah.
When I was in the Chicago area, they were still running those as everyday commuter engines for years as they started rail fanning. And I was like, I'm not going to bother with these old E units. I want to get these new F40s. And now I wish I got more of the E units.
I'm telling you, you young rail fans, don't forsake these things that you see every day.
Yeah.
Just because you think that they're commonplace and mundane, and they're going to be with you always. Because I know one rail fan that wish he would have shot the GE B36s and the other Dash 7s, and never got any video or pictures of. And now I'm really regretting it, because there were so many of those things on the CSX in the 80s and 90s. And I just who wants that stuff? Well, now they're gone. So
I was down in either North Georgia or South Tennessee or something like that, and chasing the BQ23s.
World's ugliest locomotive.
Ugliest. And I was chasing those, and I was passing up all this other stuff trying to find one of those, and I never did catch it. And then finally, about 2 years later, I caught it at Yard Center in Illinois. I don't know what it was doing up there.
They had one of those running in the Bone Valley down here for a while, painted in that awful CSX gray scheme that they had right at the very beginning. And man, that's a seriously ugly locomotive.
Yeah, it was. They whacked that thing with the ugly stick for a while.
Nashville, Georgia.
Okay.
He says there.
Cool.
Nashville, Georgia. So that's where that Azalea Sprinter tourist railroad is.
Les asks if any of us have seen the Big Boy. I haven't seen it in person. I've seen the video. I've seen a couple of them in museums. They've got one up the museum in Green Bay. And I think they've got one in St. Louis at the National Railway Museum in St. Louis.
I have not seen the Big Boy, but I just did the narration. It's like a 26-page script for Jim Herron of Herron Rail Video, and he's got a whole bunch of articulateds, which I guess the Big Boy was one. Yeah. I'm not a steam person, so I can't speak with authority on it. But he's got those and other malaise in his upcoming video, his upcoming DVD, which is, I guess, going to be articulated steam. So I'm anxious to see that. I just did the narration for him on that. So
cool. Dave asks if there's any reference material for the BNSF in the Midwest, like we've been talking about. As far as like railfan timetables, and obviously you're going to want to get the SPV atlas for that area. Look on the internet for railfan timetables. Company timetables are hard to get. You can occasionally find them, but they're usually older, and sometimes you just can't get the ones that you need. But oftentimes there's railfan timetables. So a little Google search will help you out with that.
Yeah, there's usually somebody out there who's created their own timetable, which in some cases it's better than what the railroad has. There's a guy down here in Florida, John Boatler, we call him Boat, and he's made several railfan timetables of the lines in Florida, which are far more extensive than CSX has, and far more detailed and way better for rail fanning with. So just look for those on the internet. There's somebody who's will have made them.
CJ says an iPad with GPS and cellular built in, along with the weather radar pulled up. Kansas taught him that. So that is, I have an iPad mini, and I have the full-size iPhone, which is almost the same size as the iPad.
Yeah, me too. I've got the iPhone, whatever, I don't know, 10 or
13
something. This thing
Pro
is
Max.
Almost as big as an iPad mini. I tell you what, my go-to weather app is there's two of them. I have the National Weather Service and programmed into Safari, and they give you the 7-day forecast. Right there, you can't see that. And I always think that's the most reliable because they tell you what the weather's going to be like during the day. And unlike a lot of the TV stations and, the Weather Channel stuff, they don't tell you what the cloud cover is going to be like. And I want to know what the cloud cover is going to be like. Is it going to be, they say partly cloudy. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean there's a lot of clouds? Is there going to be a shadowless day?
And what's the difference between partly cloudy and partly sunny?
Well, you'll get a couple of different answers on that. I want to know. And the Weather Service, they talk about that stuff in detail. There'll be some clouds. There'll be 50% chances of cloud cover, and then sun in the afternoon. Those kind of things that are important to me because I don't like shooting on cloudy days. I just don't like going out on cloudy days. On an overcast day, forget it. So that's one of my go-tos. Second is an app called My Radar. You probably can't see that either.
But I've got that app on my phone.
It's My Radar, and it is excellent. It aggregates radar from all over the country, and it will instantly pull up the radar from where you are. Right now you allow it to track your location, and it'll give you a current radar no matter where you are, and it's really good. And plus, you can have it's got future radar on it that'll tell you what it thinks it's going to look like in a half hour or so. Very good. My Radar. I recommend it. It's free, so
cool.
I don't know why.
That's the best type. Yeah,
but
CJ also asks, did a lot of the Bnsf defect detectors on the Transcon go to talk on defect only? That's possible, and that might be why I don't hear a lot of traffic on the radio in Flag, but. The defect detectors where I'm at here in the Phoenix area, they are all activations. They're not defect only, but I know on some of I think Conrail started going before the merger was going to defect only for a while. So I don't know if they're doing that in your area.
Now, Rich, do you scan the EOT and the DPU frequencies? Because I would think that out there in your area where it's pretty quiet, I would think that would be a big help in at least letting you know that a train's in the territory.
Yeah, I'm 7 miles from the railhead here on the Peavine, and I can hear the EOT and the DPU frequencies from here because there's nothing but desert between me and there. So and I'm not in the mountains; I'm in the foothills, so I got kind of a elevation thing helping me out with that.
Now, when I'm out there in dark territory, I've taken to just scanning the EOT frequencies because you can hear head of train HOT frequencies. You can hear those for miles.
Yeah.
And if you just listen to the EOT, you'll know when one's within 5, 6. Now here in Florida, much shorter radio range than what you guys have out west out there. But I scan the EOT frequencies all the time, and the DPUs are helpful to let you know when a DPU is.
But they're not quite as big out there. Almost every train out here has got a DPU on it. So.
Yeah, so you're just hearing that all the time, probably.
Yeah. Let's see here. Dale says you can go for hours out here and not see a single train on the BNSF or the Montana Rail Link. Well, when you live out in Montana, you can go for hours and not see another person. So Let's Go Rail Fanning said he enjoyed Flagstaff. He was out there for 3 days a couple years ago. I get out there about once a month. I get up there. It's about a 3.5 hour drive for me. And I'll leave usually on like a Saturday morning, and I'll get there like about 8 o'clock in the morning and spend all day and leave about 2 in the afternoon. So I get home for dinner. And, got a couple people say they're going to join your, subscribe to your, YouTube channel. So please make sure you subscribe to Train Aficionado and Distant Signals.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I need all the subscribers I can get.
Yeah. And we all do, and it does help. It does help us.
It helps a lot, and also you can be notified, especially if you hit the little bell. You can be notified whenever I post a new video, so you don't have to go hunting for it all the time. So that's a nice part. Say it again.
Do you have a plaque yet from YouTube?
No, I don't. I don't know what it takes to get those.
I think you got to get to 100,000.
100,000, yeah.
I'm 8,000 subscribers away right now. I think I'm right about 92,000.
Oh, well, let's get Danny a plaque, everybody.
Yeah, and let's
be ready. Subscribe.
I'd like to have a plaque, but you know, I've noticed also that it's not so much the number of subscribers; it's the number of active viewers that you have, and I've got some very active viewers.
The subscribers get you the plaque, but the views get you everything else.
But it's just and that's why I've kind of contoured the kind of videos that I've produced now, because I can see which ones are popular and which ones really aren't. And that's why I'm doing more of this how-to and what is kind of stuff. And I incorporate it into a rail fanning video, but I try to do a lot of Q&A stuff in these things because people really like that. And I would have loved that when I was just starting out, being able to see this stuff and learn what these things are. And I've got so many friends now who are railroaders or retired railroaders that I've got just an encyclopedia of knowledge available to me. So
one of our best viewers, Les, asks, how come locomotives, when they catch fire from a blown turbo, why do they keep on going and not stop? I've seen that on occasion. And there's a couple things. Yeah, GEs are famous for that. What'll happen is the soot will build up in the exhaust of these locomotives, and occasionally it's just the soot that catches fire, and it's usually not a big deal, especially if the engine is moving. But occasionally they'll have a full-blown turbo fire where it's just shooting out flames and dark smoke and stuff. A couple things: if they're moving, it's usually not going to be an issue because it's not going to spread. Or two, they may not even know about it. Yeah. If it's a couple units back or on a DPU, they may not even know about it until they start noticing the power drop off, if there is one. So could be, like I say, it could be that just the accumulated carbon burning off. But if it's a full-blown turbo fire, that can get pretty dramatic.
Boy, I'm sure you've seen them too. The number of locomotives that have that streaming, that streaming burned paint off the side, right parallel with the smokestack. I've seen that on a lot of locomotives that said, "Well, there was a fire. There was a fire before."
Yeah, and like I say, half the time it's just not a big deal. And when it is a big deal, they may not even know it. So.
Yeah.
Let's see here. And lots of other check-ins. Brent is in Albany. He's a conductor for the CSX via the old Boston and Albany line there. So,
cool.
And it must be the Boston and Albany because the BNA is also the Baltimore and Annapolis, but in a different area. My brother-in-law used to live right on the BNA trail near Annapolis. So you got the Baltimore and Annapolis, and then you've got the Boston and Albany, two totally separate lines with the same initials. And let's see here. Art's checking in from the West Coast. And looks like that's most of our comments, my friend.
Yeah, which is really awesome. We had a lot of people participate in tonight's show, and we would love to have you on again, Danny. I mean, this is so awesome to have you in this type of setting, where it's, where we're live and we're talking to a bunch of us.
I'd love to do it. I could talk about this stuff all night.
Me too. Well, hopefully in 2022, I'm hoping that our paths cross, so we're, I'll be able to meet you in person. And maybe if you're up in Arizona and you let Rich know, he might drive out to Flagstaff.
Oh, I will. I'll definitely do that.
So,
How far is that from?
About 3 hours or so from here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not bad.
I hear about that pizza place all the time. So if you do meet up with them,
pretty good.
Yeah, make sure you guys stop over at the pizza place.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah, and it's right across the street from the depot, so it's right there. So it's good pizza.
Just sitting watching trains and eating pizza. What is better than that?
Yeah, and they got benches there, so you can sit outside. And I usually bring a lawn chair, and
I always bring a lawn chair with me now. I have a lawn chair that just resides in my expedition. So I just bring a lawn chair all the time because you never know when you're going to have to park someplace and just sit and wait for something. Yeah. So,
well, if you got 2 minutes, we'll tell you a fun story. My buddy Jim and I were rail fanning in northern Minnesota, and there was a crossing between the two industrial ore lines out in the middle of the forest, in the middle of no place. We found it on the old topo maps. This is well before GPS and cellular phones and stuff like that. And so we figured out the nearest place where we can park and walk in. And we brought our lawn chairs, a cooler, and our camera bags and hiked our way in there. And we found the crossing. And there was a very limited amount of places where you could sit and stay clear of the rail and be able to see what's going on because of all the trees and the bush and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So we found a little wide spot there where we could park our lawn chairs and see both lines. And we were there for about 2 hours. We had no idea when their train was coming. And we had asked around, and they said, well, it would be sometime this afternoon on either line. And we were sitting there for about 2 hours. We saw a train on one line. We saw a train on the other line. We heard traffic on the scanner that there was another one coming on the line that goes under the bridge. And then looked down the tracks, and there's a great big old mama bear.
Oh.
And then 2 cubs following her. And we're like, what do we do now? The car is this way, and that's the direction the bears are headed. We don't, we're like, oh, so, and we don't have any bear spray or anything like that. And of course, if I had my pistol with me. I'm a police officer. And I figured if I shot the bear, I might tick him off.
Yeah, you just make him mad.
Yeah. So we packed up and headed for the car and just was real careful. When we got close enough to the car, we sprinted. Yeah. And I was thinking, am I faster than Jim?
Oh, boy.
I have never seen a bear in the woods, so
yeah.
One of these days.
I can answer in the affirmative to the age-old question.
No, you can't.
Bears in the woods. Yes, I have seen it in person.
I chuckle at that toilet paper commercial with the bears.
Yeah.
And I'll look over at my wife and say, you know what they're talking about here. You know what they're alluding to. And I ran up on what I think was a meth lab one time when I was stomping around some territory in North Florida, but that's about as close to danger as I think I've ever come.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could spend an entire show on talking about wildlife that I've seen on the human and animal.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Cast of characters, out there rail fanning, that's for sure.
Well, I think we're done with the comment section, my friend.
Yeah, so we want to remind you guys to join us, of course, next month right here on Train Aficionado Live. The first Monday of each month will be December the 6th of 2021. It'll be our final show for December, unless we throw one in for the sake of it into the mix. Train Aficionado Live is, of course, a part of trainaficionado.com. Follow, like, and subscribe to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to subscribe to Danny Harmon's channel, Distant Signal. We need to get him to 100,000 subscribers.
Yep.
So that would be super cool to be able to see that, that landmark happen. Are you going to have to do everybody I notice in YouTube, when they reach the huge, landmark numbers, they do some sort of special video as a treat. So you've got 8,000 more to go. So I guess you better come up with something.
Guess maybe I'll have to come up with something there. I'm a TV guy, so we don't talk about our ratings on the air. Which I think this is the YouTube equivalent of that. But I don't know. I have to figure out something.
Yeah.
Well, if you do get it, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I'm sure like
premature congratulations.
We would love to have you on as a as a guest all the time, a guest host. We would love to have you on again. I mean, this is really awesome to be able to have a different perspective, other than Rich's and I's.
Yeah.
Well, I really enjoy talking with you guys, and I really hearing about other parts of the country. Like you guys bring to it, and I love all the radio talk because to me, as I've told you in previous visits that we've had, the radio part of rail fanning to me is almost as important as the trains. I enjoy the radio part almost as much as I do the trains. And you guys are all about the radio, so I like that.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Just anything else? Anything you want to tease coming up on your channel that's coming down the pike?
Well, I'm working on a video right now, but I really haven't even gotten a subject for it yet, so I can't tease too much about it. I hope to have it out within a couple of weeks. I get dinged all the time for not posting as often as I should. I average about, I was just looking over my videos for 2021, and I'm averaging about one a month. I've just had a very busy year with a whole bunch of different stuff and with work and some stuff at home and some projects we've had here. So I'm averaging about one, and I'm trying to get that average to 2 a month. So if I can make that happen, I will. But I'm my only employee and my only helper. So
yeah, I hear that. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, this show is put together just by Rich and I. There's no producers in the background. There's no nothing. So, and then of course, we do the Scanner Guy show, which is a weekly show. We do 52 of those.
I know. That's a lot of work too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like, I don't know how we do it, but we do it. I mean, we're going to have a show our annual show the day before Thanksgiving, which, is, so we're going to do something fun with food or something, kind of off topic with scanners, but we'll get the scanner conversation in there a little bit. But, Rich and I will have a blast doing that as well. So.
I've become kind of interested in folded dipole antennas lately because I never knew what they were or what their function was, because CSX has switched over to folded dipoles almost exclusively on their defect detectors and their base stations. And
they're compact and efficient antennas, so they do work very well.
And can't you make them go in two directions, like a Yagi?
They look like trombone slides.
Yeah, like a vertical trombone slide.
Yeah, if you put it on one side of the mast acts as a reflector. So on an omnidirectional one, you're going to put one on each side. There'll be 4 of them, and they'll be on opposite sides of the mast. If you put them back to back, or upper and lower on either side of the mast, and now you've got kind of a figure 8 pattern, which is great for the railroads because you want to shoot it this way and you want to shoot it this way, and that gives you a better pattern in either direction on the rails.
Interesting. I after inspecting one of those closely one day, I went back and searched it online, and it was a Sinclair antenna, and I was a little bit shocked by how much those cost.
Oh, a good base station antenna like that cost you $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah. This was just a single element, a single whatever they call it, and I think
bought
this
several of them.
$850 for this thing. It just looked like a bent piece of aluminum.
Yeah, no, they're actually, the size is very specific to the frequencies involved, and they're tuned, and there's a lot more to them than just a piece of metal folded like a trombone. But yeah, they can be very expensive.
So I'm going to have to stick with my quarter wave whip for a while.
Yeah. For a mobile environment, that's as good as you're going to be able to find it. You know?
That's what I think.
Yeah. All righty, my friend. I think I'm done for.
Me too.
And I think Jonathan's done for too. I can't breathe anymore.
Well, I thank you so much, Danny, for joining us. Hoping that we'll be able to meet up at some point and be able to meet in person.
Hope so.
And it would be cool to be able to do a live broadcast trackside. I mean, that's something that Rich and I have been wanting to do.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just being able to talk about where we're at and what's going on. So hopefully we'll be able to coordinate something with that. But I guess we'll wrap it up this evening. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And I'm Danny Harmon. Until next time, when we meet up somewhere out there on the high iron, this is Danny Harmon, out.
Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Yeah.